2.
Oh, okay. I was just texting him. Good. Hey, Dale.
Mr. Black.
Yeah, that's state problem. Hey, Michael. Good. Baseball hat wasn't good enough, huh? Well, I guess if mom and dad can have a owning to sit in to watch their son play baseball, we ought to have an owning from parking lot to city hall. It just shows how old I am. All those years I sat out in the sun for hours watching kids play ball.
Hey, I do. Yeah, I have one for you up there.
What it is. Yeah. Money. Is it in color or just black and white?
It's all yours.
Yeah, that's where I saw it. Next to the dumpster or the recycle bins. So did I. It's raining. Yeah, she complained. Have you heard from her? I hadn't. Well, we've got a quorum. We'll go ahead and,
She did mention last week that she's a little late to go ahead and start.
okay. All right, we'll do that. Ready on the left, ready on the right. All right. I'll call to order a special call city council meeting on Monday, June the 7th, 2021 at approximately 5:34 PM. First order of business will be our invocation and our pledge of allegiance. And Ms. Kuzner, I believe you have it this month.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for those who are committed to serving our country, our states, and our cities. Please keep them safe from harm. Lord, I ask that you guide this council in our decision-making regarding the task before us, that the decisions we make will be based on what is best for our city and its residents. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Ms. Kuzner. Okay, welcome for those that are in attendance. Let the records reflect that all council members are present with the exception of Ms. King, who is on the way. I'm sure the rain is holding her up somewhat there. So we'll proceed with the new business that we have before us. Tonight, have only item before us is the consideration for a motion to enter into executive session to receive legal advice regarding the city center project as allowed by state statute, section 30-40-70A2. What's the pleasure of council?
So moved.
A motion, Mr. Matney. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Reynolds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 That's the record's vacant 6-0. We will now move into executive session. Let's recess upstairs to the conference room. Let the records also reflect that our city attorney, Mr. Dugan, is present and accounted for. Thank you. At approximately, what time was it? 5:36. Checking out.
Sandy out. She got his pizza.
Cindy, the piece is cold. You want to report out, Taff? Well, he's old.
Yeah, what are they?
He's old. Give him a little bit. Like the Beacon Bell, walk and talk, walk and talk. All right, we are returning from executive session at approximately 7:07 PM. Mr. Madden, you'd like to report out?
Thank you, Mayor. Coming out of executive session at 7:07, no decisions were made, no votes were taken.
Thank you, Mr. Matney. I also let the records reflect that Ms. King joined us at the start of our executive session, so she was whooping in there. Fully participated, so thank you. Public comment. We're at that section on that. I can go over all the rules, but is there any public comments? Cindy, did you have anybody sign up? Nothing there. Anything good for the group? All right, hearing none, go to the council's request. Hearing none from you, I had one thing I was asked to urge all of us. A couple of citizens came up and said they would urge all of our elected officials to attend as many of our public events such as ribbon cuttings, Beach and Friday, Culture Center events as possible. Your presence is noticed. Pass that along to us. And also, I haven't spoken to Mr. Madden on this, but we did get a letter is if there's any interest in a council person serving as a liaison with GTA, please let Brandon or myself know, and we can move forward as we are duly elected, excluding Mr. Madden.
Thank you, Mayor.
That would be tough. Anything else? Here none. Why don't, would this special called council meeting be adjourned at approximately 7:09 PM? So let us, by unanimous, we are adjourned.
All right, now we're going to go ahead and go straight into EPD. It is 7:09 and everybody is here. We'll go into our first public comment period. Does anybody have anything that they want to address in the first public comment period? Remember, there is a second one, so if you don't feel like talking right now, you get an opportunity in a few minutes. Going once, going twice. Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and go to reading and approval of minutes. What do I hear?
So moved.
Motion for reading and approval as presented.
Second.
And a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Reports, communications from city officers.
I'm sorry. I wasn't here for the EPD meeting, so I can't make a motion approving the minutes because I wasn't here for that meeting.
Well,
Sorry.
unfortunately though, the vote, the motion was made, the vote was taken. So unless we want to go ahead and move to reconsider and go through all of that rigmarole, I think we're good. So let's go with reports, communications from city officer, Mr. Broad. right, Shecky. Mr. Broad, if you want to grab the mic where the clerk usually is, you might just be able to go ahead and do that.
Thank you again, Mr. Matney, council members. Our Community Development Department continues to make good progress in our budgeting. The budget stands at 25% availability of an ideal 7% balance as of today, 6/7/21. Our department held its annual fundraising dinner for our cultural center last Thursday. We raised a little over $12,000. We expect some more funds to come in for and from that event too as well. Our cultural council installed new board members that have a great passion for our community and our center. So we're really excited about where this new team of board members are going to kind of lead our cultural center council and foundation over the next couple of years. Beach and Fridays and our Mauldin Farmers Market. If you haven't been to either of those events, I would encourage you to attend. They started off with a bang and a wine. And they continue to be just a great, two great events for our city and our community. There are a lot of folks who are citizens that come, and then of course there are a lot of folks from really as a regional outreach for our city that people who come into the cultural center for those events. So bring your family, bring your friends, bring your neighbors, and come enjoy Beach and Fridays and the Farmers Market, which is on Tuesday nights from 5 to 8. Council approved the contracts for the new lobby phase of the city center, not the city center, cultural center, and Momentum Construction has begun plans and will begin demolition within the next couple of weeks on that. Thank you to our Public Works team who offers invaluable service to our team time and again. They removed all the junk, Matthew, thank you, sir, out of the lobby kitchen, and that's going to enable us to begin work in there too as well. Our theater season ended with Shakespeare in the Park. We had good attendance, and we just had a great blowout season of theater. If you hadn't had a chance to visit any of those productions, don't worry, there are more coming up. Beginning in August, we'll have a new slate of theater programs, so I hope you'll be able to catch one of those. As council is aware from our executive sessions and meetings, there's much development taking place throughout the city. A lot of things we can't talk about publicly, but there are a lot of things that are happening. You've seen Aldi has hit the ground in construction and making good progress. Bridgeway continues grading, and we'll begin to see vertical construction this summer. Our city center continues to make good progress. I believe we'll see demolition and construction start in short order on that project soon. And so there's just a lot of good things happening in our city. There's opportunity for our community and citizens to be engaged and encouraged by what's happening in the city of Mauldin. And I thank you for the opportunity to serve and be a part of that. And if there are any questions, be glad to try to answer.
Questions or comments from Mr. Broad?
None for me.
The only thing that I would say, Van, I don't know if it's because people had pandemic fatigue and have just been so excited to have an event to attend, but Beach and Fridays, I think that it's bigger than it's ever been.
Yes, sir.
And I don't see that those crowds getting any smaller. I have heard nothing but compliments for you and your staff, for Public Works, for keeping everything clean, which is not an easy thing to do when you have that many people in that concentrated an area. Everybody from the police department to the fire department. I mean, we really have had every city department on deck, and to see our chiefs walking around and mingling with the community and building those community relationships. It's one of the best advertisements we have for the city. So thank you so much.
No, thank you, sir. And I apologize. I meant to mention the police and fire department and all the other departments, but typically they just show up and try to look good. So
All right. We don't have any unfinished business, so we're going to go ahead and move into new business. First piece is development agreement with the Parker Group. Do we have a motion to forward the development agreement with Parker Group to full council?
I would, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to move the development group, development agreement forward to full council for consideration.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And now we're going to move to the Cultural Center lease and rental agreements and rules. Mr. Broad, I don't know if you want to come back and kind of go through this, or if you want Mr. Madden to handle this. I know that this is a pretty cumbersome discussion, and we've, with as much use as we have in the Cultural Center, things have changed, so
Right.
you may want to give the lay of the land.
Yes, sir. And I mean, unless, you know, we want to go through each document, and we can, I'll take as much time as you desire to go through those. Sometime before my time with city council, former councils adopted some policies and strategies, and part of those included partnering with Rotary Club, Civitan, Lions Club, and other groups, wood carvers who funded some of the upfit of the cultural center some years ago. In the intervening time, we had some other lease agreements in place. If you remember, those of you who've been on council for a while, there was a ballroom dance company that met over there, some other groups too. Brandon Dykes, who's a guitar instructor, has been at our cultural center for probably 10 years, I suspect. So we've had ongoing activities like that happening, but we've expanded and grown, and we just have a lot of activity there now, plus our own programming. So you know, we've been following some of the past guidelines for rental agreements and rental rates. And so we just wanted to bring this to you for an update of here's what we've done. And with the advent of the amphitheater, now the auditorium, and soon to be lobby plaza, that's just going to give us more opportunity to rent those facilities too. So we put numbers to those, and we've included that in this information sheet for you to consider and hopefully vote to move to full council if you desire, or if you need more time to look at it again. That's certainly something you may want to do. We did reach out to multiple facilities to make sure that we were in line with. We feel like we're kind of in between some upper end facilities and maybe some smaller facilities too. So really our rates are pretty, you know, I think community friendly. Now some of them may seem like a lot of money, but I will tell you, having had a daughter who just got married, our amphitheater rate is actually really great. So those things can be right pricey. The current leases, and this is just something, you know, we might want to take a look at, is the Art Haven, the Guitar Center, Cindy Sharp Tones, which is a vocal studio. They actually rent from us. And then we have what I call holdover leases, the Chamber of Commerce, the Civitan Club, Disabled Veterans, Mauldin Garden Club, Mauldin Lions Club, Mauldin Rotary Club, Mentoring and Leadership Institute, and the Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Veterans all meet at our center. And it has been the history of the city not to charge those groups a lease or a rent rate. And now that we've lost space due to our own programming growth, that's becoming tighter and tighter. And we're great, I mean, with any and all those groups using the facility. But I brought this to your attention because if you let one group use it free, you have to let everybody use it free by statute, ordinance, and law of the Supreme Court of the land. So I don't know, John Duggan would have to advise you on, you know, how that, you know, would stack out. I'm just saying past experience from some issues we had in a former community. If you give free to one, you by law have to give free to everybody. So for room rentals. So I just think those are some things you might want to consider and think about long term. But I would at least like for us to continue the policy that we have now, where we're using those spaces for civic use. an ongoing basis, free, as we are doing. The chamber, the Rotary groups and those groups. And then we'll lease those rooms out at a daily rate for other users. Because those are nonprofit groups too, so there's all those nuances of those things as well. But you see, you have here in your hand what we would like to charge for rental rates for rooms, which is pretty much in keeping with what we've been doing. $60 an hour for meeting room one, which is the Rotary room. $40 an hour for an artisan studio, amphitheater, auditorium, $2,000 for a day. We don't want to get into half-day rentals. It's just not advantageous for us to do that. Outdoor amphitheater, $3,000 for the day. And then we would provide security and staff at $35 an hour for major events and things like that. So I hope you've had time to go through those and read through this and see what's in here. And again, we can go through each one, but for you what we propose.
Do we have a motion to forward this to full council?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? The only thing that I would bring up, and honestly, it's just because Mr. Broad brought this up. Before we, and I intend on us going ahead, if it's the pleasure of the committee, to move this forward to full council tonight. But that before we take it up at full council, or when we take it up at full council, Mr. Madden, that we have an opinion from city's legal counsel on the issue that Mr. Broad raised. I think Mr. Duggan has already left for the night, but if we could get with him to get an opinion on making sure that what we're doing is in line, I would have a much higher degree of comfort before we take it up actually in council, but I'm good for us to go ahead and forward it tonight. All right, if there's no other discussion, all in favor of moving this forward to full council, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. And that's going to go ahead and move us to the Mauldin Development Corporation. So, Mr. Broad, don't sit down. This is a team effort tonight, man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So this has been something that has been under discussion for a fair amount of time, and we've looked at a development corporation for the city. Mr. Broad, you want to go ahead and kick that off?
Well, yes, sir. Mr. Matney and Mr. Madden can please weigh in too as well. Council has been for some time considering a development corporation. I think we've enumerated the pros and perhaps cons of what a development corporation might be and what it might look like. One of the things that I continue to think about is the ability that it gives the city to move forward in many facets of development as a hand of the city and city council. You guys would certainly continue to have great authority as having board members who you would appoint to a development corporation to have authority over that board and the staff that it may or may not hire at your direction. So I would yield to Mr. Madden if he wants to add to any of the conversations that we've had over the past couple of months on that. I think if we want to have an open conversation about that, we probably should do that.
Chairman, members of the committee, so the Development Corporation, through the ordinance, through the draft bylaws that are presented before you, just allows for an opportunity to increase the development that's going on within the city, but done so through a different vehicle. And that's essentially what's before you. Should the committee forward this to full council for consideration later this month, any changes or concerns council has can be presented and addressed prior to the council meeting. But this is a fluid document. If there are concerns that council has regarding just for example, the members that are on the board or the way they're placed on the board or appointed, those changes can be made prior to council approval. It's an ordinance, so it would take 2 readings and before it's finalized, and that will give council time to vet any of the major concerns that the members of the committee or council will have regarding the Development Corporation. So there are a number of entities here in the upstate that use Development Corporation. So there are advantages. There are some challenges with it as well, but those can be worked through the bylaws and the ordinance. But I'm here in so advance to answer any pressing concerns that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Before we get into discussion, we need to have a motion. So is there a motion for this to full council?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to forward this to full council.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion?
One, I'd say concern, we had talked previously about having, I think, somebody from Greer come by and talk to us about how they use theirs. Is that still planned with the full council?
Yes, sir, we haven't rescheduled that, but we can, we absolutely. And he's willing. Reno Deaton is the executive director of Greer's Corporate Development Group, and he has expressed willingness to come or Zoom.
Ms. Kuzner, you had a question.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Matney. I agree. I feel like I need to have more information on this. I need to be able to meet with a city that's already doing this, just because, just me, I'm not comfortable with it right now. So I don't know if that could happen before the council meeting.
I think we can, Mr. Madden. Do you?
No, I certainly agree. And in addition to City of Anderson or Anderson County, we also could reach out to the City of Greenville, see if their Economic Development Director would like to come and just explain more than just theory from just reading through the bylaws.
And that's one of the reasons why we actually held this item in committee last month, is to give everybody an opportunity to go through those bylaws. So I appreciate staff's time or staff's patience in giving us the time to review that. And if we need to have some additional time, if we need to have a special called meeting so that all of council can be informed by the folks who are dealing with this on a daily basis, I certainly have no problem with that. I'm in favor of the concept because I understand, and I think we all understand that an economic development corporation gives some latitude that we as a governmental entity do not have, and that the corporation itself would be able to have that latitude to have discussions that make it very difficult for us to have sometimes. I do want to take a look at the board composition, because there were some things that kind of jumped out at me, especially in looking at the composition of some other economic development corporations and who serves and how they serve. So I think we would want to have those discussions as this moves forward. But we can either continue moving forward with the motion and forward this to full council, and Mr. Broad can schedule a workshop for sometime in between now and the regular council meeting. Or Mr. Kraling, if you wanted to rescind your motion to forward this to full council and just hold it on the floor or hold it in committee until we can have that workshop, I'd be fine with that.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarity, one more time, verify. This has to have 2 votes, correct?
Once it goes to full council, it will have to have 2 votes because it's an ordinance.
So if we were, I'm just throwing this out as part of the discussion, if we were to have, say, during the council meeting, having somebody present so we can ask, my thing is, I understand theoretical. I'd like to hear some practical. If we can have that discussion, I think before we vote on it in full council, so people feel comfortable, and then we're probably gonna have additional questions before we would take a second vote if it was to go forward. I'm okay with that process. That
Ms.
sound
Kitchener,
reasonable?
are you okay moving it forward with that
I would
scenario?
prefer to hold it in committee just for another month to give us time to learn more about it. I don't know that we need to rush through this. That's my opinion, but.
Mr. Curling, would you be agreeable to rescinding your
I
motion?
would be agreeable, I'd be agreeable to rescinding that motion.
All right.
Extra review.
So Mr. Curling has rescinded his motion, and did I hear you move to hold this in committee until next month?
At this time, I guess I would ask that we hold this in committee until next month so that we have additional ability to review and discuss with other cities other practical use of this.
So with the rescinding of the first motion, we have another motion to hold this in committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We're going to hold that in committee for one more month. And that is going to take us to my PDF not doing what it's supposed to do. Thank you, Mr. Madden. So we're back to public comment. Does anybody have anything that they want to bring before us tonight? Hearing none. Committee concerns.
None at this time.
What do I hear on adjournment?
So moved.
And we are finished at 7:32.
You ready? All right, I'd like to go ahead and call this Finance and Policy Committee meeting to order. The time is 7:33. Members present are myself, Michael Reynolds, Ms. King, and Ms. Kuznar to my right. First item is going to be called to order. Next item is going to be public comment. There are two items in this committee for public comment. Do I hear anything from the public currently? Very good. Hearing none. Next item is going to be reading and approval of minutes. What do I hear on the minutes from May 3rd, 2021?
Motion to approve as submitted.
Thank you, Ms. King. I have a motion to approve as submitted. Ms. Kuznar, I understand you were not at that meeting, so you won't be voting, correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Ms. Kuznar. I'm going to second that motion. Any discussion, additions, subtractions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries 2-0. I'm going to go ahead and also make sure that I announce that our city administrator, Mr. Madden, as well as finance director, Ms. Abercrombie, Mr. Mark Putnam, our human resources is also current at this meeting, attending live and in person. All right, next item is going to be reports and communications from city officers. First one up is Mr. Madden. You have budget review as well as the American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, at this time, the city is, budget is approaching the end of the fiscal year. We're in line where we should be at this time. And I'm extremely proud of the department directors for the way they've been managing their budgets thus far through the end of the fiscal year. As far as the American Rescue Plan Act funds, it was included in the administrative report this past week, the allocation amounts that were recommended and will be provided to all cities and counties, and particularly in Mauldin's case, because Mauldin has less than 50,000 residents. The funding allocation of approximately $12 million will be provided to the state, and the state will have to give those funds to the city. The states will have to request that funding from the treasurer's office. We received an update from the Appalachian Council of Governments that right now the state is on a leave, and when they do return back to the State House in a couple of weeks, they may take up requesting those funds at that time. If not, they'll probably wait until September before they take that up. But we'll be waiting. The finance director, Holly Abercrombie, is working to put together a spending plan that will be presented to council for them to review and vet and approve on how the funds may be able to be spent once they're received. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Yeah, going back to the budget numbers, I think it cannot be stated enough, given the uncertainty coming into this year, the job of your department heads as well as the finance director, keeping the city's services to the same level as well as funding in a healthy state. I just, me personally, I don't think that can be overstated. What a great job you guys have done from top to bottom. And I think that leads right out of the finance director's office into yours. And y'all's leadership there is certainly appreciated and understated and probably undervalued. But for the record, we appreciate all your hard work. And then with the American Rescue Plan Act funds, anything we can do from a council's perspective that will help assist you guys moving forward with requesting funding?
Yep, right now, staff is going through the guidelines that were provided by the Treasury's office on how the funds can be spent. We've identified a number of potential expenditures that staff believe can be covered through the funds. The guidelines are changing as folks present concerns on how the funds can be spent. So at this time, we want to kind of get through and look at the city's capital initiatives, look at some of the expenditures that occurred prior to now, and dealing with the with the pandemic and the way the staff response was at the time, and come back with a spending plan that we can share with council to get you all's feedback on the way we're moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. No, absolutely looking at, being clear, they'll be looking at past capital expenditures as well as employees and then moving forward as well. So, okay, if there's anything that this committee can do or other council members, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you, Mr. Madden. Okay, next item is going to be Finance Director, Ms. Holly Abercrombie. Your favorite time of year, you're winding down on a great budget, and then you get to check all your numbers.
Good evening, committee. Pretty much echo what Brandon said. The budget's coming to a close, but there will be a lot of revenues still left to come in after June 30th. So far, everything looks good. Revenues look about where we thought they would be. I will work as hard as I can to get y'all a preliminary number as soon as possible. I look forward to that number. Other than that, I don't really have any major things to alert you to, unless y'all have specific questions.
So just to put you on the spot as soon as you can, what date would you be thinking?
Mr. Chair, it would typically be August, so leave her alone till August.
I was going to say, typically it's about August 15th-ish.
I'm mostly kidding. No, thank you, Ms. Abercrombie. Do we have any questions for Ms. Abercrombie before she leaves the podium? Hearing none. Thank you, Ms. Abercrombie. Okay, nothing specific on your agenda, but Mr. Mark Putnam, would you like to step forward and address the committee?
Good evening, Chairman Reynolds and committee. Thank you all for having me here. Just wanted to let you know, as far as the police chief search, we are on schedule with the timeline that we laid out earlier, so everything's going fine there. And just to let you know that it's that time of the year again. We'll start with with the health benefit, everything it up and going from there. So as things progress with that, we will keep you updated as to what we see, what we don't see, and what our options may or may not be. We'll go from there. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Putnam. Any interest in moving the healthcare reevaluation dates towards having it mixed up in the budget time? Does that do anything to help you?
I'm sorry,
your re-enrollment and all that stuff, because we do this where we're voting on it in December, right? Or in January, I guess. Any changes? Would it help you or hurt you to move that closer to in line with
to July, just run it July? I know Fountain Inn does that. Some of the cities around us do, and yes, that could be an option. Uh, the biggest one would be for the year that you're in now, because instead of signing a contract for a year, you're probably going to sign a contract for 6 months, and that has some advantages and it has some disadvantages. So you just have to know for when you adjust it that there could be some fallout just for that 6 months, because our current contract would run out
Right.
at the end of the year.
Right.
We'd have to sign a contract for just until June 30th. Yeah, it's possible.
Forgive me, committee. I didn't mean to spitfire there, but certainly I think council will be open to anything that would make your job uh, easier to address.
It's something that, I have talked with our broker before, just simply because before we went to where we are now, we had looked at going to a group that wanted us to do it from July
Right.
to June. And that's where we got into the 6 month thing. And like I said, that's just one of those things that you really got to look at and see what they're going to hit you with for that 6 months.
Very good, Mr. Putnam. I appreciate it and didn't mean to surprise you there. That was just food for thought. Okay, next item is going to be unfinished business. We have none there. New business. This is going to be a review of the city ordinance, section 2-33. This applies to, this was actually held in committee from last meeting due to Ms. Kusnar actually not being absent, and that's a little bit of what it was about. So this policy deals with remote participation in council meeting or committees or workshops by council members. This was changed a number of years ago to help a council member who was going through a health issue that was causing him to not be able to make as much meetings. But one of the things that's come up as we've looked at technology advancing to where it can be substantially easier to skip meetings or maybe not show up present in chambers, making sure that we, as a council, kind of define what our extenuating circumstances are. Miss King, I'm sorry, I'm scrolling here. We talked a little bit about in the last council meeting, talked a little bit about this and the differences between county council's definition of it. And it's kind of drastic in between our differences and theirs. So just wanted to put this out there, have a little bit of discussion. We don't necessarily have to move it out of committee tonight, but just give some thought and some suggested changes that we may have. So I'll open it to you guys. Any thoughts on this item?
I'll go ahead.
Yes, Ms. Kusnar.
Okay. Well, from what I'm reading, the extenuating circumstances are medical condition, death of an immediate family member, or official city business which prohibits him or her from being present. I don't know how much more you need to define what extenuating circumstances are unless there's something else you want to add in there.
I know our ordinance covers you have to have physical presence to run the meeting. I don't think we've had any situations like that. Ms. King, you have any questions, comments?
Well, I'll just repeat basically what I said last month. To me, extenuating circumstances is broad because you have following that, such as. So it's not saying only those three things. It's given those as an example. I know, again, as I mentioned last month, I think it's appropriate when you have, we all know that we have the first Monday and the third Monday. That's written in stone, period. We have committee and we have council. If there's a special call meeting outside of those dates and someone has a planned business meeting or a planned vacation, then I think it's feasible that that person be allowed to, in today's day and time, to participate remotely. However, I do not think it's appropriate to use it as a means to inadvertently miss committee meetings and regular scheduled council meetings. Not that that would happen, but that would, to me, the extenuating circumstances such as given examples, just kind of leaves it open. So again, I don't know how to fix it. I'm only one vote, but I don't feel, I just feel it needs to be tightened up. We're elected officials. We should be here in person, in my opinion. But I realize that there's probably situations where someone could not be here. Now, if I had the death of a family member, I'm sorry, I'm not remoting in. So I don't think that's a good excuse. I mean, I don't think that's a good reason. Um, it- so again, I'm not sure what the fix is, but I think we need to tweak it somehow, in my opinion. Perhaps send it to council and get input from all of council, then bring it back to perhaps tweak it at that point, or maybe the other 6 members like the way it is.
Okay.
That's my input.
Okay. Ms. Kuznar, you have a preference there? Would you like to send it to full council just to get it open for discussion, see what the rest of council thinks about it? Or would you guys like, I have no issue holding it in committee. Let me strike, I could ask Mr. Madden to, if we want to come up with our definition of what extenuating circumstances are, or just take out such as, so that we are just saying these are the only reasons that you can participate remotely. That would be fine with me as well.
Well, it's the word extenuating. So, something that can be prevented is not extenuating. So, I mean, I guess people can read it however they want, but, and I agree, we're elected officials and the public expects us, I think, to be in person. So, I mean, this says in order to participate and vote at a council meeting, the mayor or a council member must be physically present at the location where the meeting takes place unless a council member has extenuating circumstances. So, I mean, that's pretty cut and dry to me, but I don't mind sending it to council for, everyone's weigh in on it.
Mr. Chair, could I add one other comment, please?
Yes, Ms. King?
Thank you. Actually, according to, and if we decide to keep it in committee, that's fine, or if it goes to council, or perhaps in comments, someone, mayor, could chime in. But it's my understanding that our attorney has interpreted this to mean something different than what I interpret it to be. So there have been cases where there has been participation remotely that I don't think it fell into these categories personally, but our legal counsel did. So therefore, we follow this ordinance. So again, I don't know the answer, but I don't think you need to stick to just those 3 items, because I think if you have a special called, that a council member should be able to participate if I'm on a business meeting and there's a special call meeting. But it should not be the standard form, even in today's technological means that we have to participate, because you just don't get the same. It's hard, in my opinion, to participate remotely. We have seen that in various Zoom meetings that we've had, unfortunately, during the pandemic. I just think we're more, and I don't think anyone on council would disagree with that. We're going to be here if when we can, but those circumstances where we can't, then when does it fall into place that we would be able to vote and to run a meeting?
Certainly.
That's the question.
I would agree that we should add something about the special called meetings.
Okay.
And because there, especially in the summer, there are going to be some of us not in town when a special called meeting comes up. So, you know, if that's something that, if it's a special call meeting, then you still can't participate, or however we want to put this in here. But I think full council should weigh in on this.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the committee? We can hold this, and Mr. Madden and I can talk through some of the more extenuating circumstances and how to redraft it, or we can send it to full council to talk about other, or to ask other opinions. What's the
I
pleasure?
personally would like to hold it in committee at this time and then have Mr. Madden perhaps see what other, I mean, we know what the city of Greenville has, but I don't know what other municipalities may do and may compare what their wording is and bring it back to us next month and then decide.
Okay.
That would be
Is that
my
in form of a
pleasure,
motion?
because it's not urgent at this point in time to get it done in 2 weeks.
Good. Okay. Then in form of a motion to hold it in committee. All right, moving on. That is the only item we had, so Mr. Madden, you and I will get together and talk about how to proceed with some of the thoughts from the committee members, and I'll try to reach out to other council members and get thoughts as well to incorporate those for next month. All right, next item is going to be public comment. Do we have any public comment? Hearing none. Do we have committee concerns? Very good. Hearing none. What do I hear on adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The time is 7:52. The next meeting up is going to be Public Works. Thank you, committee.
Ready to start? All right, it is 5 minutes to 8 o'clock. I would call this committee to order. We have here council members Carol King, Michael Reynolds, and myself. Let's see here. Let's just get started. Public comment. Is there any public comment pertaining to Public Works? Okay. None? Please. I believe it, when we get to the section, she is now, just as a citizen, so we'll discuss that later. Okay.
Does it work? All right. Yes.
Ready, finished, or get more?
All right.
Oh, we have to do it in order. Just as if she was another citizen, we have to follow, we come to that point. It is public comment. You can comment. We can't react. Thank you. Robert's rules. Any additional public comment? If none, all right, next is reading and approval of minutes. What do I hear?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted for May 3rd's Public Works Committee meeting.
Second.
I have a second. First and a second. Any discussion? No? Those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, ayes have it. We'll move on. All right, next, reports on communication from city officers.
Mr. Fleeman, if you could use that handheld mic, thank you.
All right, so I'll start all over again. Okay, so I compiled my numbers based on period ending May 25th. We should have an ideal expenditures of remaining 10%. Sewer is sitting at 29%. Streets was at 8%. Sanitation at 10%. Administration, fleet, and parks were all at 17%. So with the exception of parks, we're all above what we should have the remaining for the 2021 calendar year. Streets is a little bit under, a little bit over, excuse me. And that had to do with some unforeseen expenditures with the 2021 City of Mauldin paving program. All right, so that is the budget review. The next thing on the item,
Mr. Fleeman,
yes, sir.
could you do that again while singing?
You do not want to hear me sing.
Yeah, microphone looks like he's.
All right. So, I'd like to bring to your attention that earlier this year, I worked with Fraser Engineering, and we submitted a Rural Infrastructure Authority grant application. We had submitted the application for $500,000, and we titled the project Basin Fine Sewer Rehabilitation Project, and it included lining approximately, let's just say, 3 miles of our sewers in Basin 5 and performing necessary point repairs to facilitate the lining. The manhole rehabilitation that we have been doing will also be continuing independently of the $500,000 grant. Of course, we're not going to do any sewer lateral work. We were awarded the $500,000. And so starting in July 1st, or July 1st, yes, we'll have the $500,000 to couple with the $300,000 that council's already budgeted. We'll have a grand total of $800,000 to do 3 miles of relining work for our sewers, improving the sewers in Basin 5. For what you may or may not know, REWA has been conducting a wet weather study to identify our basins. We have worked in Basin 5, part of our bond project, the $3.4 million bond we took out years ago. Managed to do a bulk of Basin 5, but with this grant and the money allocated, we should be able to finish up Basin 5 and then do a little work in Basin 4. So we'll basically addressed all the issues in that particular basin of our sewer system in accordance with the wet weather study for REWA, and then we can actually get ahead of the game forward. So, are there any questions regarding to the grant?
Fantastic news.
No, thank you very much. All right. Okay, all right. And then the next thing I want to bring up is one of the things that came to my attention as I've been trying to straighten up public works was we have a lot of development, and I get a lot of questions from contractors in regards to specifications for our sewer system. And when digging into the issue, it turns out that we started the process in 2017. We reached out to Fraser Engineering. Fraser Engineering generated some draft specifications for the city. The public works director at the time was supposed to mark it up, make recommendations, and then bring it before council. He did none of that. And so it just died. I've reached out to Fraser Engineering. I've received a hard copy of it. I've done a markup, identified changes that were going to need to be made. And hopefully I can bring it before committee at the next meeting so that we could go ahead and codify it, or send it to council to be codified as part of our ordinance. Those would be the general specifications for our wastewater collection system.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What specifications would they be using now?
There are none.
Thank you, Mr. Fleeman.
With that being said, is there an international standard, I would assume, of some?
So what you would do, what you end up doing is deferring to the base requirements as stipulated in SC 6167, which is the SC DHEC regulations. It's pretty much the minimum design specification.
So it's not that there's none, just not
There's
specific.
City of Mauldin does not have any.
I just want to be clear. People say we don't have anything. We're just, run rubber hoses under the ground. That's not happening.
No, we're not doing that. We're meeting all the legal requirements, but we do not have any
Specified spec.
any specifics. Yes.
So now that you've marked up the product, will you send that back to Fraser Engineering to read? Okay.
Very good.
We look forward to getting that. Thank you, Mr. Fleeman.
Very exciting stuff.
Yeah, very excited.
Anything else? I think we're good. You finished, Mr. Fleeman? Thank you. Drop the mic. All right. On that, unfinished business. There is no unfinished business at this time. New business, the trash and recycling receptacle policy. All right, Mr. Administrator, can you kind of?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. So the item before you is the trash can or receptacle policy. Right now, the Public Works Department is guided by the city ordinance as it relates to trash and recycling receptacles. But given some of the concerns presented by members of council and not having an actual policy on that guides and staff, staff took the ordinance, put it in policy format, and included some provisions on page six at the end of the policy that details what happens if a can is damaged and the process that staff goes through in attempting to repair that can or receptacle, and if it cannot be repaired, how it's replaced and who bears the cost of replacing it.
And for everyone's discussion, this was something I brought to you. This was I had a couple residents ask me, what's the policy? And found that there is no written policy. With this, I did have some questions on it. This is what I've heard previously, but do we have a rule that if it's so many years old, it's a responsibility of the resident? If it's beyond that, the city would pick it up, or vice versa, like there's a warranty. There's no warranty period, correct, on anything?
No, there's no warranty. The way the ordinance and this policy is drafted, the responsibility is on the resident for the can.
However, with that, based on reading this here, if the can is damaged, notify the city. We'll do what we can do if it's reasonable.
Yep, the city will make attempts to repair the receptacle so that it works.
And we do this pretty regularly, don't we? Yeah.
So for some repairs, we always keep stock. Lids are going to come off, wheels are going to come off, bars can get bent, and we'll fix those as we go. Things like residents load out their trash can they fill it with dirt. They go to tip it, it cracks all the way down the side. We can't fix that. You throw construction debris or anything underneath your trash, and we try to tip it, and the bar rips off. We can't replace it. It's sometimes the repairs are based on or the damage is based on negligence, and we just can't facilitate a repair because the can can't be fixed.
Right. And also age.
Age.
You
And
have a
that's the other
30-year-old
thing is-
can, it's not going to survive if plastic gets brittle.
Yes, and the other thing that we have is that I don't know if you've even seen them, but some of the older cans that we have in the city are the ones that actually have the removable lid. We actually don't have parts for those anymore. So we've spoken to the homeowners when they call and say, "Hey, our wheel fell off." No one makes that wheel anymore. It doesn't exist. So
And this is something I just want to note on this. This is something that we do here in Mauldin. We try and help with the cans. Most cities don't. They're just say you're out of luck. So I think this is one of the things we go above and beyond, and I'm appreciative to the staff that they do this. And I think you see a lot of complaints and stuff. I think you need to understand we go above and beyond here in Mauldin. So I want to thank you for that. With that being said, there was a concern about dirt, rocks, those things that are bagged up. Those are still be collected. That's still covered by this, just not specifically, correct?
there are some items that we are prohibited from collecting. Twin Chimneys, the landfill specifies what waste streams they have because they're a permitted entity. Construction debris goes to a different type of landfill. Rugs, drywall, cinder blocks. Those aren't supposed to go to the municipal waste landfill. Unfortunately, residents will always try to hide stuff in their cans, and I certainly can't ask my guys to rifle through the cans to ensure that the rules are met all the time. But for things that like Diane Kuzner asked about, was like what in particular was construction debris, yard waste. What was the other one that you asked about? Yeah. Those items are not supposed to be picked up, and on our website it clearly identifies that we don't pick those things up. If you do set them aside, we're not going to get them because we don't go to the construction and demolition landfill.
When you say yard waste,
Well, the yard
People
waste, I
understand.
mean, to be honest, it would be certainly easier if the people who put out the little pile of brush that's like this big, if they would just throw it in the trash can, our life would be way easier. But for grass clippings, the grass clippings, if they do get bagged,
Mhm.
they will get picked up.
tree limbs, those
Tree
things.
limbs, we're going to pick up with the knuckle boom in accordance with our limb pickup schedule.
Yard waste, you're more thinking about hard, almost structural material.
The only yard waste, and there is a certain type of yard waste that we will not pick up. We are we do stipulate that it has to be 6 inches in diameter or less, 6 feet long or less. People will put out tree trunks, huge logs at the curve, and expect us to pick them up, and we're not going to. We don't. I mean, we can't take them to be mulched. We can't take them to be chipped into the mulch, and it's a violation of our ordinance. So those items will be left curbside.
Yeah, just to add that staff, public works staff is guided completely by the ordinance. So the things that are picked up or not picked up is outlined by ordinance, and that's what they're guided by.
The ordinance this is our policy. Our ordinance is separate and already.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure everything's in. Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns, committee?
Yeah,
Discussion?
and I will add, and I know, the staff is going by the ordinance, but council can't change the ordinance. Not saying that council should consider that, but staff will do what council directs, what council directs staff to do via the ordinance.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I'm sorry, I did have one other quick question. Yes. And this is just future, again, spitballing here. As you, use you're loading trash trucks to pick up the recycling, correct? Currently,
That is correct, yes.
at some point, would it be prudent to use the side loaders for the recycling pickup?
It is a recommendation that I've proposed, yes.
Okay.
It was, when we sat down and made a recommendation, when we were talking about staffing on our trucks.
Right.
The side loaders making the transition, I mean, the recycles making a transition to side loader
Side loader.
was recommended.
So if that's a plan in the future, we should do away with the small cans then, right?
Yes, we're gonna have to make that transition.
Okay.
So yeah, if when we get to the point where we're talking about swapping out the recycle fleet, there are gonna be additional costs, just to get the right type of cans for the residents.
The large ones would be the right type.
That is correct.
Okay. That was all I was asking. Nothing to do with this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, there's something to do with this.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only thing that I would ask if, with this being a trash and recycling policy, would it be prudent for us to add a statement that, and I know this doesn't happen often, but it does happen, when we accidentally back into a can and one of our trucks destroys a trash can, that we, the city, would replace that can at no cost. Because there's nothing in here that I read that addresses that situation. I don't know if that would be necessary, but I do know that that has happened in the recent past. Just a suggestion. I don't know. Thank you. Why are you staring me down?
I
can
can
answer that.
just envision in my mind the number of phone calls that are gonna go, they backed into my can.
But the thing is, I mean, you know, when well, yeah, you're right. But I just know of a situation where it did happen. The resident called, and we confirmed it. Yes, that did happen. And we replaced the can. But under this policy, that technically wouldn't be allowed.
Right, and to be honest with you, the way that the solid waste ordinance for the city is written, it clearly says that the city shall not be responsible for damage to cans. So we've kind of
That's fine.
we've
I was
kind of
just
had
throwing it
some
out there.
leeway with it.
That's good.
It's kind of one of those, like, you let your morals dictate it, and it's if they made a mistake.
Common
they damaged
sense
the car.
doesn't always prevail, right?
I understand.
Well, we try.
Yes.
I know. I said that for someone else. He's raising an eyebrow over there, I don't think.
It's been really.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right. Based on that, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to forward this policy to full council with a recommendation of approval.
I have a recommendation for approval of this policy. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, on that, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. This moves on to the city council, full city council. Thank you. All right, public comment. See somebody? Nobody? No, I'm just kidding. Please, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, nobody. Just one comment. I had seen a committee earlier called Finance and Policy Committee. Then I see something here with Public Works Committee with a policy and procedure manual. The word policy, I'm somewhat confused on. If it's a policy, would it not need to be also vetted through the Finance and Policy Committee? That, and I think I'd spoken to our administrator about some clarification on the wording under policy that we've had an example before that's come up. It needs to be clarified in the phraseology. That can be done between now and council since they moved it there type thing. So, and the last thing I had was just to consider, instead of loading all of our bag clippings and grass into our green container that may overload it and get picked up and damage the can because it had too many grass clippings in it, we might want to consider moving our grass clippings to curbside and let the old vacuum truck do it like we used to do years ago. Just some considerations for discussion the days you don't have anything to discuss. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else? All right. With that, we'll move on to committee concerns. Ms. King?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a, a comment for, Mr. Freeman. So the paving that is being done currently to our streets, which looks fantastic, by the way, on Devon and on Edgewood. So on Devon, there's two signs that's telling residents that there'll be paving. That has already happened. The trash bags never came off of the signs. So I think somebody forgot to go get them. I know that's not our people, but could you notify the proper folks and remind them that those signs are there with trash bags on them?
Yes, I actually brought that up last week, and
Okay, perfect.
their response was, "We just wait until we're done and get all the signs." And
Okay. I
let
think
them
they're
know that-
done.
I was like, "Well, you're not." Well, they said done with the whole city, and
Gotcha.
I let them know that that neighborhood's not one that.
Yeah, and then, stop. Just every day I run by and I'm like, don't you love seeing those signs with the trash bags on them, Mr. Matney? Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Any other committee concerns? With that, move for adjournment, or I'm sorry, do we have a motion for adjournment? All right, with that, let's call it an evening. Thank you. Thank you. The big problem was is that
All right, we ready to call Public Safety Committee to order at 8:18, Monday, June 7th. Present, we have myself, Mr. Dale Black, Mr. Jason Kraling, all committee members, and we also have in attendance our city administrator, Mr. Madden, our interim police chief Miller, and Chief McHone. Is Judge Martin with us remote?
Yes, yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay. Good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, so we're all present either in chambers or, and then we have Judge Martin remote. That leads us to our public comment number one. Does anyone have hello, Mr. Any public comment at this time? All right, seeing none, then that will take us to the reading and approval of the minutes from May the 3rd. What is committee's pleasure? Motion to accept as distributed. Do I have a second?
second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes from May the 3rd, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, motion carries. Reports from our city officers. We'll start with Chief McHone. I think you all have a handout he gave you just a few moments ago. I guess you got your budget review first.
Good evening, committee members. We'll go over the budget. Our budget, we're on track where we need to be. So we're ideal remaining percentage at 7, and we're at 18%, so we're 11% under budget. So we're where we need to be under budget. So that budget looks good. Questions on the budget?
Seeing none. All good? All right, I think you have an update on training for us.
Yes, ma'am. I know there was some questions, maybe some concerns about some of the training hours that was being held and all that. So I broke it down from 2017 to current of hours. If you want to look at the ISO requirement training is 16 hours per month per personnel, and 48 personnel times 16, we we get 768 hours per month. So we're looking at roughly for the whole year, what we need for ISO is 9,216 hours. Go down to total training hours for 2017. We had 3,430 hours, but we updated our data collection. So that's why the numbers are down on that for that year. In total train hours for 2018, we had 14,758.71. In 2019, we had 13,154.21. And for total train hours for 2020, and this was during COVID-19 where a lot of the stuff was shut down, we still was able to do 13,370.25 hours. And currently where we're at now, as of May 21st or 2021, we got 7,134 hours. If you divide that by 5, it gives you average hours per month of 1,426.80. Times that by 12, we're projecting to be at 17,121 hours for this year.
Great. So committee, as you can see, the required for ISO is only the 9216. So we are projected to almost double that number.
Yes,
this year.
what we do is 20 hours. I know ISO does that. We shoot for 20 hours a month.
Gotcha. Can you, Chief, could you give us an example of what, in a month, what those training hours look like? If they're a classroom, if you're going into abandoned.
There are a multitude. I mean, it's a whole bunch of different things. I mean, it's touring facilities. I mean, it's anything, leadership training, there's a whole bunch of different things that goes into it. We've got a training outline through it's enormous. Different trainings.
Any questions for Chief on training? Mr. Craig, you have none? I may later, but I'm good right now. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, Judge Martin?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Just a quick report in reference to my budget. At the end of May, the ideal percentage remaining would have been 10%, and we're at 30%, which makes us coming in at 20% under budget. And there's no reason to believe that we won't finish that way as well. So that's all that I have to report this evening.
Great. Thank you, Judge. Does anyone have a question on the budget for Judge Martin? All right, we may be picking back up with you under new business,
Yes, ma'am.
Judge. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so all of the accolades tonight will be going to the Chief Miller, who has the pretty cars to talk about. So if y'all haven't seen the new SUV sitting out front, you need to go out there. It wasn't raining. Is it gone? I thought I saw it drive off about an hour and a half ago. I didn't know if that was it. Did y'all see it out front when you came in this morning? I mean, we've been here so long, seems like morning. Yes, yes. They are awesome. So as a reminder, Chief can talk about it, but he had input from the officers on what, 2 or 3 different.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll let you tell
We
them.
had three different designs to go from, and that's the one that the majority picked. We were going to have to wait until the next budget year when the 18 cars come in to start that new design. But when we got these done under the old decals, the decals started peeling off, so it was under warranty. So we just went ahead and said, well, let's go ahead and fix it. So that's we got 2 more going up tomorrow to get done.
Well, I will add that while I was holding down the sidewalk at Beach and Fridays, like I tend to do, I talked to several of our officers, and they all, I mean, all I heard was, "We love it. It's old school. We love it." So great
Right,
job.
that's the main objectives for everything to be uniform.
Mhm.
It looks professional and it looks traditional.
And I think, and they all appreciated that they had skin in the game and were asked their opinion, and I think that's very important. So thank you for that.
Yes.
Mr. Madden, thank you for your leadership as well in that. All right, so we have a budget review.
Yes, ma'am. We should be at 10% ideal right now, and we're at 18%.
Any specific questions? All right. Then an update on your radio purchases.
Yes, ma'am. In the 2020-2021 budget, in the capital, we had money set aside for radios and a repeater. We're going to purchase the radios and the money for the repeater. Since we're not going to need that, we're just going to swap that over to buy more radios.
Any questions for Chief Miller on the radio updates? All right, we're good then. Or you have anything else to present?
I have a few
Committee?
things.
Okay, I should have
Officer-
known.
Officer Madden started his first official full day of being our. Can you hear me? All right, there we go. He started his first official day today as the community liaison. Up until now, he's been sporadically doing it. He went out to one of the neighborhoods on Tanner Road a couple of weeks ago. They had a community yard sale, and he stopped by the yard sale. Wasn't shopping. He was just stopping and talking to people, giving them his card and letting them know what his position entails. We're in the process of getting National Night Out set up. There's when I started with the COP program in 98, 99, we had established a rapport with Mauldin Gardens. We've reached back out to them. We're going to have prior to National Night Out. And also we're in the process of mid-July having a community cookout. Everybody wants to come. It'll be either one of the parks or the local and if any of y'all have not seen the piece that News 4 did about Madden,
You did. It was good.
also, this wouldn't be possible without the committee and Mr. Madden. We've received a certificate of appreciation for the Golden Strip Career Center Law Enforcement Program in reference to the vehicle. The guest instructor position.
Great. Any questions? All right. Thank you so much. Mr. Madden, did you have anything to add?
I do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have no unfinished business, so that leads us to the new business on our agenda tonight. Item A is the web portal state contract, pages 6 through 36 in your agenda. And Judge Martin, are you going to take that for us?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay.
Basically, this deals with the contract that we use that allows the municipal court to accept credit card payments. The current version of this web portal state contract that we have with South Carolina Interactive is going to expire July 15th. With that in mind, we received notice that they're currently developing the requirements for a new contract in reference to solicitation. They may go with a different company. However, during the interim, we will be able to continue to use the very same contract that we have right now for an additional year. Again, please know that there could be a possibility of a new vendor that may be used once the new contract has been awarded. But by signing this contract, this will allow us to continue to use the current contract that we have through July 14th of 2022. So that's basically what that is in a nutshell. Again, we use this to process credit card payments for anyone wanting to pay their court fines.
Okay, what would, thank you, Judge Martin, for that explanation. What is committee's pleasure on the contract with Web Portal for the credit cards to be extended for 1 year?
Oh. At this time, I'd like to move that we award the contract for the web portal services to full committee. Sorry, full city council.
Gotcha. Got a motion to forward to council. Do I have a second? Second, Mr. Black. Thank you. Any discussion or questions for Judge Martin or Mr. Madden?
There is a fee to the people using the credit card that they have to pay. I think it's $1 per transaction.
I apologize if I can tell someone's speaking, but I can't hear.
I'm surprised you couldn't hear me.
No, sir.
You- Mr. Black was just referring to the small fee that the user would have to pay um, to use the service to pay by credit card, which is,
Yes, and that is standard across the board.
yes. Thank you, Mr. Black.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Anything else? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of forwarding to council, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, none opposed, motion carries. The next item on our agenda goes back to Judge Martin for another contract with the South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind.
Yes, ma'am. So this is the contract that we use when we have to rely on interpreting services for those that are hearing impaired or blind. Just so you all know, on average, we may use this service maybe twice a year for court. If you look down here during the fiscal impact, I've outlined the actual fees. As long as we don't call them for services, we don't incur any type of fee. It's just on an as-needed basis.
Okay, so again, this would be renewing the contract for the next fiscal year through June
Yes,
30.
yes, please.
All right, what's committee's pleasure on the contract for services related to interpretation for the deaf and blind?
I move we forward this to full council for consideration and action by the full council at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Kraling. Any discussion or questions for Judge Martin? Hearing none, all of those in favor say aye. Aye. None opposed, motion carries. Okay, the next item, thank you, Judge Martin.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Item C, which is Animal Care Service Agreement, outlined on page 39 through 49. And Mr. Madden, did you want to discuss this, or it's basically to turn over our care with our kennels to the county versus us keeping it in the city?
Yes, Madam Chair, that's correct, members of the committee. So with the city consolidating its public works operations, not only from McDougal Court, but from Jenkins Street to Standing Springs Road, the question is, what's the way the city will address the use of the kennel? Right now, the city's kennel is located on Jenkins Street. And so that is planned to be demolished as a part of the development for City Center. So what's being proposed to this agreement is that animals that are dogs and cats that are picked up by the city's animal control officers are taken to the Greenville County Animal Care Center to be dropped off instead of going to the kennel. And so there's a per diem cost associated with that. So it's $100 per dog or cat that the city picks up that's taken to Greenville County. And so this would replace the manner in which the city currently is taking care of its animals that it picks up and takes to the kennel on Jenkins Street. So what's being requested is that council approve an agreement with Greenville County to allow staff to take animals, dogs and cats that are picked up, instead of taking it to the kennel on Jenkins Street, since that will be moved, it'll be taken to Greenville County. Currently, the way it operates now, animal control takes dogs and cats to Greenville County, just not on a regular basis. When they're picked up, their staff tries to release them back into the community they're picked up in, and then they'll take them to the kennel on Jenkins Street. But if they're unable to take them there, they take them to Greenville County.
Approximately how many animals do we pick up on an annual basis or monthly, if it's easier to just a wild guess?
I will add, just to add to Chief, the number that was put in the proposed budget for fiscal year 2022, 67. And that was based on looking at the past 3 years of how many dogs and cats that were picked up and either put in the city's kennel or taken to Greenville County. So the 67 number is the figure that was used in putting the budget together for fiscal year 2022.
And then my other question would be on page 41, where it has identification of lost pets. There's verbiage in there that Mauldin agents would make a good faith effort to locate the owner of the pet. So I guess my question is, but we would never house that pet. So if it's a frequent flyer and we know where the dog belongs, then we can,
We can take it back.
the
to
animal,
Yes,
okay, would there still be an animal control officer or,
yes, ma'am.
okay? Because that's a dual job, correct?
Correct. Right now, he's doing codes also.
Right.
Uh, yeah, once we get them, we scan them, see if they've got a chip. We've got that capability. And also, we'll put it on Mauldin Lost and Found, Simpsonville Lost and Found, and usually within 35 to 45 minutes, the owner is located.
Any other questions? And we're kind of out of order, but go ahead, Mr. Black.
Chief, once the animal is picked up, taken to Greenville County, where do they go, Greenville County, go to Furman Hall Road?
Yes, sir.
What approximately is the difference between the cost of us doing it, even if we had to put another kennel? I know there's a liability, but once we drop the animal off at Furman Hall, they accept all liability and everything for medical care and everything, correct?
Yes, sir.
So how much, just estimate, because we have to feed them, we have to, have the vets and the labor and all that stuff. So paying what Greenville County would charge versus what we're doing in-house now. Plus, if we get rid of the liability if we take them to Greenville County.
Yes, sir. I don't have the exact numbers. I can get them for you.
I mean, it's just approximately, we're, several $1,000s a month or a year or.
Yeah, with the food and we've actually had to take dogs to the vet, so we incur bills there. And like getting shots and stuff. They appear to be sick.
So they would be available 24 hours a day up there if we had a call in the middle of the night versus we had a kennel a week here, we could house them in.
If we had a kennel here, we can house them in, but at Greenville County after hours, they have a code that we can go in and they have some kennels set aside for the municipalities in the county when they drop a dog off after hours.
Kind of self-serve.
Yes, sir. And they have food and water present there that we can feed them and water them, and then they'll take them in the next day.
That's my thing, make sure it's covered 24 hours a day, because now I think it is, if you got a call or animal control got a call in the middle of the night, and then we got to have a place to put them, I just want to make sure we still have the same facility.
Right. It's like I say, there's a code that we can get in and
Okay.
feed them and everything, and then they check them first thing in the morning.
It takes approximately how many minutes? I know depending on traffic to get to Furman Hall.
In the middle of the night, maybe 20, 25, probably.
8 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's gonna take an officer off the road for a few minutes.
Yeah. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Black. I guess it's not, I guess it is a concern, for lack of a better word, but we need to just, I'm not opposed to the proposal, but but we need to make sure our residents understand that we're not in the business of picking up and housing dogs anymore. So I'm not really sure how we're going to address that other than putting it out there on social media and on our website. But I think that's something that we need to do just to get the word out there that, yeah, unfortunately, I know, for lack of a better word, like you said, we do have frequent flyers. So there are some dogs that are repetitive, we pick up on a regular basis and probably end up housing them for the maximum amount of days that we can. So that's unfortunate for all. And it's a cost that we incur as a city. I think we've been fortunate, talking about liability insurance, Mr. Black. I mean, I think we've been very fortunate over the years with not having a situation to where we were housing a dog and they became sick or something like that. So again, I don't have a problem with it. So, yes, sir, Mr. Black.
Another question, Mr. Chairman. Right now, what's the approximate charge that we have for the residents if we pick up their animal and we house it versus taking it up there? I mean, the residents gonna need to know that we're not collecting any money. We go to Greenville County.
As of right now, we haven't been charging them. If they come pick up their dog and everything, we'll send an officer up there to the kennels at night when the animal control officers go.
But if we
pick the dog.
take it to Greenville County, would there be a cost in Greenville County for them to pick their animal up?
No, sir.
But they still, well, they could go pick their animal up at Greenville County and they wouldn't be a cost.
Yes,
Unless they
sir.
had,
They just have to go during operating hours to pick up the animal.
that's another question I had. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Good question. Any other questions? What's the pleasure of committee for the animal care service agreement?
I move we send this to full council at the next regular council meeting for consideration and action on this change, since we're gonna be moving and doing away with our kennel. We'll no longer have one, so I think that'd be a good move.
Thank you, Mr. Blight. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Kraling. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of forwarding the animal care service agreement to full council, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Back around to public comment number 2. Yes, ma'am, Miss Joanne. I'll let Mr. Madden answer that. Well, do you mind, Mr. Madden, to address that?
Yeah, so there's a standard in place, depending on the diameter of a tree, whether they can cut it. And if they do have to cut it, they have to replace it with a certain amount of trees. And so that is in place through our ordinance. Yeah, and I think you're referring to the development across the street from Mutts. If so, some of the trees that they took down, they by ordinance they have to put a certain amount back. So, once they do their landscaping, there are certain trees that they'll have to put back to replace the amount that was taken out. Yes, and I would defer to council. Staff certainly can present at a future committee meeting the ordinances that guide the manner in which trees are removed and the size and the diameter, and staff will work at council's pleasure.
Thank you, Joanne. We'll look into that for you and get back, okay? Thank you. Any other well, I think you are the public as usual. Okay, committee concerns. Hearing any? Yes, sir, Mr. Kraling?
Not, Mr. Madden, as we discussed previously, we were talking about possibly some of the golf cart policy for the city, make sure the rules are clearly identified, where they can be, ages, and looking at some other municipalities that have additional requirements such as Isle of Palms and Peachtree, Georgia, and even some fees that they assess to those golf carts permits to help pay for such things as trails or upkeep where they may be used. I just want to bring that out. We discussed that maybe for future discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Kraling. Any other concerns? Hearing none, what do I have on adjournment?
Adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. We stand adjourned.
Come back when you
Okay, it is approximately 8:47 PM. This is the Building Codes Committee that I'll call to order. All in attendance are myself, Councilmember Dale Black and Councilmember Taft Matney. Also in attendance is our administrator, Brandon Madden, and the BDS Director, David Deerhawk. Is there any public comment? Hearing none. What do I hear on reading and approval of the minutes from April 29th?
Move for approval as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in approval say aye.
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 Aye, okay. Ayes have it. Next on the agenda is reports or communications from city officers. Mr. Deerhog. Thank you. Do you have any questions for Mr. Deerhog? No questions. Okay. There is no unfinished business, so we'll move on to the new business. Item number A, Mr. Deerhog. All right. Do I hear a motion?
Madam Chair, we move that we forward to full council with a recommendation for approval and ordinance to provide for the annexation of 0.83 acres of property owned by David M. Adams Sr. et al. And located at Fowler Circle near Ashmore Bridge Road, portion of tax map parcel M007.01-01-00306 by 100% petition method, and to establish a zone classification of R15 residential for said property.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Madam
Yes, sir,
Chairman,
Mr. Black.
this might be a mute thing, but David, on page 15 where the document was signed and witnessed, I noticed we had some witnesses by some of the other property owners. I mean, I don't know what the law is about can't witness your own signature. I mean, I just noticed this, and it looked like about 6 of them in there was all related. That's, I just wanted to check. I thought it was kosher, would have sent it home, but that's all I had, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Okay, all in favor of sending this to full council for review and approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. All right, item B, Mr. Deerhog.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. This next item on the agenda is a petition to annex a half an acre. This is a portion of a property that is already in the city. Most of 807 Holland Road is currently in the city. The property owner was kind of confused that not all of his property was in the city, so he'd like to go ahead and take care of the rest of that now and annex the rest of it into the city. Then the remaining part would take on the same zoning as the rest of his property that's currently in the city S1. But this is a site of a office warehouse flex building. It's about a 20,000 square foot building there. It's presently being used. And again, the property owner would just like to bring in the rest of his property to the city.
All right, thank you. Do I hear a motion to forward this to full council?
Moving forward this to full council for next regular meeting.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Yes, sir, Mr. Black.
David, this is, I think the piece of property that you're talking about in there used to be a mechanical heating and air conditioning building years ago, and it's right down below the Ryan Nichols Inn, whatever the name of it is now,
That's correct.
right next to it, I think,
That's correct.
where you get to the creek. Yeah, I thought all of it was in there because we changed the zone on that years ago.
Apparently, we missed a little part of it, but we'll get it all now.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, David.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of sending this to full council for approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Okay, now we're moving on to item C, Mr. Deerhog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an annexation of a 10-foot strip of land, and this is actually a strategic annexation for the next item on the agenda, but we're going to deal with this piece first since it's the part that's firstly contiguous to the city limits. This is a 10-foot strip in front of the Spinks gas station at 549 East Standing Springs Road. Again, there is a gas station and convenience store at this property. We're only looking at annexing the 10-foot strip along the front. We are still waiting for the signed paperwork to come back into this, but we would like to ask the committee to consider conditionally moving this forward to city council on the premise that we get that signature signed paperwork back this week and with the recommendation of approval.
Thank you. And I will note that the owner of this property is Spinks Investments Incorporated and not the city of Mauldin.
Thank you. That was a typo in the staff report.
That's quite all right. Thank you. Okay, what do I hear on a motion?
Move that we forward to full council with recommendation for approval and ordinance to provide for the annexation of a 10-foot wide strip of property owned by Spinks Investments Incorporated and located at 549 East Standing Springs Road by 100% petition method.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Yes, Mr. Black.
David, explain, I looked at this drawing you got where the red is the 10-foot strip.
Correct.
And that's, if we get that, that's gonna take us to what, the center line of East Standing Springs Road?
Yes, so we will annex that 10-foot strip, and then as is customary for all our annexation ordinances, we annex to the center line of the right-of-way. So that will get us to the center line of East Standing Springs Road going all the way to Neely Ferry Road.
That will get us the corner up there, which is gonna be the new facility.
Correct.
So by going the 10 foot in front of the Sphinx, gets to the center line, use the center line of the road to get to the intersection, then you go across the intersection to tie into that where the buildings are located down at.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
I was looking at it and thought that's what it was, but I just want to make sure. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, David.
You're welcome. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of sending this to full council for approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Okay, moving on to item D, Mr. Deerhog.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. And so this is the next piece that touches what we just did. This is the property at, it's 8 acres at 700 East Standing Springs Road. It was recently purchased by the city of Mauldin. And we would like to go ahead and bring that into the city of Mauldin. So you have before you a petition to annex that into the city and zone it for, actually, it'll be the same zoning that it is in the county, zone it for S1.
All right, thank you. What do I hear on a motion to forward this to council?
Madam Chair, that we move that we forward to full council with recommendation for approval and ordinance to provide for the annexation of 8.23 acres of property owned by the city of Mauldin and located at 700 East Standing Springs Road by 100% petition method and to establish a zoning classification of S1 services for said property.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Yes, Mr. Black.
This is contingent on that 10-foot strip being signed, correct? Without
That's
it,
correct.
then this is a no, because we can't get to it without that 10-foot strip.
That's correct. If we don't get that, we'll go a different way.
Unless it shows annexed to center line of northbound 276, so.
Yeah, so we can annex to the center line of the adjacent right-of-way, and this is a little bit of a junction mess out there, but Highway 276 out there is the closest road that is out there that runs parallel to that side of the property. So we're able to annex to that center line because it's a parallel road to it.
So once the 10-foot strip is signed and legalized, then we can go ahead with the annexation of this eight acres.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
You're welcome. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of forwarding this to full council for approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. All right, now we go to item E, Mr. Deerhog.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request from the applicant to hold this rezoning ordinance in committee. You'll probably recall that this was just reviewed by City Council and was passed on first reading. This is the ordinance to rezone about 6 acres at Service Bay Road for a planned development where the applicant is planning to do a mixed-use project, including indoor soccer fields, restaurants, self-storage, and a few other things. So he has asked if the committee could hold this in committee before second reading to give him a chance to get all his other ducks caught up, including making sure he gets all his financing secured and closing on the sale of one of the properties.
Thank you. Okay, what, what do I hear on a motion to hold this in committee?
I move that we hold a second reading of this in committee until said time and everything is satisfied from the owner and the developer.
Do I hear a second?
Just a quick point of clarification. We already gave first reading to this, correct?
Correct.
So it's already moved out of committee and is on the floor. So really, wouldn't it be more appropriate to hold it on the floor since it's not a committee item unless we want to recommit it from the floor back to committee?
And that could be, and that just be the recommendation that comes forward to the city council when you meet next. Is that what you're saying?
Well, because it's not in committee, so we couldn't hold an item in committee that's not in committee anymore. It's already on the floor, having been voted on first reading, correct? So we just have to, really, we just need to hold it in full council, or hold it on the floor at full council. So
That would work.
yeah, we don't even
Yeah.
need this tonight.
If I may, will the committee just accept this as information, only as an update? Yeah.
We've held second readings for various reasons before, but I don't know whether we held them in committee or full council just held us up on the second readings. It doesn't matter. Just try to accommodate the owner and the developer. So without second reading, it's mute anyway.
So will we list this on the city council agenda as just a request to hold that item on the floor? All right, we'll proceed accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then 6F.
Thank you. And I believe that you have another night you're scheduled coming up to review this, but this is just a report of the vacancies that we currently have on the boards and commissions right now. On the Zoning Board of Appeals, there are 4 open seats for appointment or reappointment. This includes 2 seats that remain vacant from last year, plus 2 terms that are expiring this year. One of those has applied for reappointment, and we've also got 1 new application. And then with the Planning Commission, there are 2 open seats for appointment or reappointment. Those are both for seats that are expiring this year. We have received 1 appointment or application for reappointment as well as a new application. And so I believe Ms. Cindy Miller has scheduled you all to meet to interview these candidates next week.
June 14th. Yeah, okay. Okay. All right, thank you. I think that's all we have. Um, uh, there's G on the agenda. I didn't see, there it is. I'm sorry. Informational update on encroachment permits.
Yes.
Is it, okay.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So historically, it's been the policy of the city of Malden that sewer service lines, also known as laterals within the right-of-way from the main line to the structure, whether that be a business or a residence, are private and owned and maintained by the services, by the property owner and not the city of Malden. As of April 2nd, 2021, the South Carolina Department of Transportation has indicated it will no longer allow private sewer lines to be permitted within the state's right of way. So that means all new sewer lines proposed within the state right of way will be required to be owned and maintained by the city of Malden or a similar public utility where it applies. And this includes, but is not limited to, any existing sewer lines that are being replaced, upgraded, or relocated within the state's right of way. And so we had a discussion internally recently to just talk about, make sure we knew how we were going to uh, process these types of applications. And right now, the city of Malden already has a procedure in place for administering encroachment permits for work, including sewer work within the right of way. These procedures involve the review by appropriate staff at the Public Works Department and the payment of an encroachment permit fee of $35. The city is going to be applying this same procedure for sewer work within the state's right of way, since lines constructed, replaced, upgraded, or relocated within the state's right of way will have to be owned by the city of Malden. Again, we're just bringing this to you as an informational update.
All right, thank you so much.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
if I may, and David, this may be a more appropriate question for Mr. Madden. Do we have any idea of the fiscal impact to the city for us to now take control and ownership and maintenance of the laterals on state rights of way?
So, and this was part of discussion that David referenced earlier that we had internally. With new construction, the expectation is that the new lines and laterals will not require any immediate maintenance because they're new. But for some of the, I'm gonna use the East Butler Road project as an example. So the Department of Transportation is going to require that the city of Malden um, do all of its moving for the sewer lines that are in the right of way for the repaving of East Butler Road. So let's say you have a business that is located on East Butler, a new business, they have to put in a line there. So the city will be responsible for either moving a line or they'll be responsible for building a new lateral. In either case, there's an expense to the city. So we haven't really had an opportunity to quantify what exactly that amount could look like moving forward. But there will be an expense to the city because of this new approach.
Are we also looking at laterals for residential projects or commercial projects that are located within the city but they're located on a city road and not a state road? So are we going to take ownership of all laterals or just those that are on a state road? And the city roads would be out of luck.
Yeah, right now it's just for state right of ways, not city roads. So for residential developments, as long as it's not the house isn't facing a state road, right now the city would continue its custom and practice of not accepting the laterals, and that would be the responsibility of the property owner or the resident. Um, but council may want to consider amending that policy to accept laterals. The city is one of the few sewer providers that does not accept the laterals or does not consider those belonging to the city.
That may be another question for city's council is, can we accept some laterals for some people and not for others? Because then that becomes an uneven provision of service. Can we find out from him where we are in that respect?
Yes, we can follow up, especially with our legal counsel, to make sure that we're at least being fair and not accepting some and not others. This is came across as a mandate from the state, and so we're still working through to see how that impacts the city roads.
Well, and as we all know, DOT does what DOT wants. Thank you, Mr. Madden. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. All right, I think that concludes all of that. Okay. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, are there any committee concerns? Hearing none, what do I hear on adjournment? All right, and a second. Mr. Black?
Second.
All right, we're adjourned at 9:09 PM.